Welcome back to the Ignore the Template podcast, the only FPL podcast on the entire internet, hosted by me. My name is Devin, and we are back. We are back to back, in fact, because I just released a podcast or YouTube video yesterday discussing pricing, seeing how that can be improved. And this is going to be basically part 2 of that philosophy of how to improve FPL. Again, I think a lot of energy and focus should be on pricing, because that is the number one determinant of if the game is going to be good, engaging, playable, if there's going to be decisions to be made, if you can just stack all the best players into one team. I'm not a bitter person, I promise, but yeah, I do think that having better pricing overall would improve the game, and it just make it more fun for everybody, not just intensely engaged players. I think it would be more fun for casuals too. But after that, there's a lot of other ways that FPL can improve the game, and I think there's a lot of low-hanging fruit. So in today's video podcast, I'm going to be talking about all of the ways that I think FPL can improve and just give my general opinion on it. Some I think are a little bit more subjective than others, and it's going to be a flavor that appeals to maybe me but not you, or you and not me, and some of it's going to be opinion based. So please keep that in mind when you are ripping me to shreds in the comments, which you are free to do, and I encourage you to do so. Okay, now getting into the improvements. During the off season, I feel like I was able to reduce all of my thoughts to one main question. And that was, what if FPL was a little less random? And I'll clarify what that is, but really you could break it down into a few different categories from there. So trust me, that's going to be a lot to talk about. And then from that, like, what if good decisions were rewarded to a higher degree, and what if bad decisions were punished to a higher degree? Would that make it a better or a worse game? And again, this is going to be opinion. Some of this is going to be opinion based, but some of this is going to be, I think we can mostly agree on some of the things I'll talk about as the video progresses. Another question, which I think we were able to answer in yesterday's video podcast, which is, what if you couldn't afford all of the 15 best players? I do have a couple extra points I want to tack onto that, so I will address pricing really briefly in this video as well. And then after that, I want to talk about quality of life improvements, because I think that is probably the area that's a little less subjective, and I think there's some low-hanging fruit that we could just hopefully all agree that there are some things that can be improved on the app, in the game itself, on the website, across the board, that hopefully we can agree on. If we can't, I have some concerns, because some of these are really slam dunks, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. And again, please let me know in the comments if you have other ideas. The one last thing I want to mention before I start digging into what if FPL was less random is, I didn't want to solve everything, or I didn't want to answer every question I had with and I'm really hesitating to say this, but like a cheap chip. Like, I feel like there is probably a chip that could answer every problem with FPL, but I feel like that's a little easy, and I don't think the game needs more chips. I think if anything, the game needs fewer chips, which I will talk about in the quality of life section, where I talk about some of the improvements that they've already introduced or announced. So keep that in mind. I know that there is probably a very simple like chip thing that you could do to improve the game in some ways that I'm suggesting, but I would probably stay away from that. So most of these are going to be a little bit more in the weeds, and hopefully I can break it down, but that just wanted to lay that out there. Okay, so what if FPL was less random? And I think about this, or I thought about this in 3 major ways that are hugely impactful for FPL. So number 1 is having to do with the point scoring, but specifically the questionably or arguably random point benchmarks and shelves that you see, like you need 10 defensive contributions to get 2 points. Well, is there a substantive difference between 9 defensive contributions and 10 defensive contributions? Does it make it a better game that a player consistently gets 9 defensive contributions a game, but doesn't earn those points? Or would it actually be better if there was more of a continuum or a spectrum or a fractional, however you want to chop it up, and divvy up the points that way? And you see this everywhere. So it's not just defensive contributions, clean sheets. You can there has been an argument to break the clean sheets up into, well, if you were able to keep a clean sheet in the first 45 minutes, maybe you get 3 points, and so on and so forth. But in saves, you get that. I'm drawing a blank, but there are a couple other areas that I just feel like it's weird. Why do we have these questionably random benchmarks for some of these point scoring metrics? And let's just jump over to the FPL website to show the scoring just as a little bit of reference, because for every 3 shots saved by a goalkeeper, you get 1 point. For every 10 defensive contributions by a defender, you get 2 points. For every 12 defensive contributions by a midfielder or forward, you get 2 points, but they also include ball recovery. So stepping aside from my point really quick, just simplify this, like include ball recoveries for defenders, just have it on the same metrics. Just there's no need to add recoveries for midfielders, but not for defenders. First of all, nobody would feel the impact, especially if you rescale the points. But I don't think anyone would even hardly notice. So keep it simple for those reasons. And then you can change this, or you can change the point scoring system one of 2 ways to remove these shelves and benchmarks. The first way, you could just make fractional points. So instead of let's take goalkeeper saves, whatever, you get 1 point for every 3 saves. Well, what if you got 0.3 points, 0.333 repeating points per save as a goalkeeper? That would mean that goalkeepers that get 2 saves a match, they're not being punished for no reason. They're still making the saves. They should be getting the points. And the same for defensive contributions. Instead of 2 points for every 10 defensive contributions by a defender, change that to 1/5 of a point for every defensive contribution. Now, it would obviously throw fractions and decimal points into your scoring system. I think that would probably be better. But another way you could do that without having decimal points would be to rescale the point scoring system. And this is probably not going to be popular because you're going to be basically multiplying, you're going to be cross multiplying, I think, because we want to make sure it's equivalent per position, but you're going to be multiplying so that the points that a player would score, like typically on average for how it currently stands, a player probably scores between 2 and, if they're, doing really good, a double digit 10 to 12 point score. Now, if you rescaled it such that you had to multiply instead of for defensive contributions, you get 1 point for every 5 defensive contributions, you would have to multiply that by everything by 5 to make it so that 1 defensive contribution is 1 point, if that makes sense. Okay, and I stepped away to actually do the math because I don't want to be talking out of my ass, but essentially what you do is you cross multiply so that 1 def con would be worth 3 points and 1 save would be worth 5 points. So you'd have to scale everything else up and multiply everything by 15. So a goal from a midfielder, and this is going to be annoying to people, a goal for a midfielder would be 75 points, I think, if my math is right. So again, it would totally rescale the point system, and you wouldn't be seeing, like I said, 2 to 12 points on average for players. You would be seeing higher scores, but also you would get point contribution for every action you make. You wouldn't have these silly shelves where you have to hit a certain benchmark in order to get any points. Because again, I think from my personal point of view, it's a bit random, it's a bit weird, and it would make more sense if it was on a more continuum. So just to summarize this a bit, I think you could either stick with the same scale we have now and just do fractional points for saves and def cons. I think people understand what a decimal point is. I think that would be fine. Or you could rescale it and it would be whole numbers. So you would just assume that, I guess, we're dumb and we can't do decimals, and it would just have to, it would be a whole number, but it would be it would be a much larger relative whole number for each player each week. And one added bonus that I think you could do when you rescale it, if you actually wanted to go down the route of rescaling it, is you could just actually take the bonus point system and fully integrate it into the scoring so that you get like 1 point here and there for whatever actions get picked up by bonus points, and you wouldn't have this like 1 to 3 point ranking on the bonus. You could actually make it part of the scoring system, and I think that would make it more complex, which again has pros and cons, but yeah, it's a benefit to rescaling the point system. But again, I think probably if I'm leaning a certain way, just do fractional points. I think that's fine. Yeah, I think people understand that, and it wouldn't overly complicate the game. I think it would make it better, and you wouldn't get 0 points for 8 defensive contributions, and that wouldn't be an annoying thing every single week. Okay, next thing that I view as slightly random, I think has partially actually been addressed. So FPL did come out with a new update suggesting that they're going to be like forecasting player price rises and falls like they do on the live FPL app or FPL statistics, RIP. I think they stopped doing that last year. Any of these price predicting websites, they had some sort of projection on if a player would rise or fall in price on a given day. So while I think that, and again, I can get out of this, so while I think that is a great first step, and I think that is a good quality of life improvement, I think just take it 1 or 2 steps forward in that. So number 1, I would suggest just publish the methodology. Like the fact that it's even down to probability on if a player is going to rise or fall in price is like, why is it a question? We should be able to calculate based on the number of transfers in, the percentage ownership. We should be able to just calculate it and get 100% accurate answer. Now, the second part of that is they should publish the methodology, but then they should just say if a player is going to be falling or rising in price. Like, they are the ones in control of the pricing. Why is it down to probability? So again, it goes back to that methodology question. I think in the past, there has been a little bit of cloak and dagger. Like I remember, I think it was a couple seasons ago, maybe last season, where Solanke started the season with an injury, and like they price locked him. But then in some other cases, when a player is injured or whatever, they're able to fall in price. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that maybe that's not a perfect example, but I'm sure there's others where a player seemingly falls or rises in price for like no reason. And I look at these, like I'm on Reddit, I see the comments of like, he was at 0%. Why did he rise? Well, I think there should just publish the methodology, just clear it up, let us know how we can calculate it. And then it would be less like why does anybody need to control the pricing of a free game that is basically just taking your data and ultimately trying to get you involved and engaged in the Premier League to get more eyeballs on the screen? You don't need to price lock players randomly or like without any indication that they're going to be price locked, basically. And my final random kind of thing is random benchings and injuries post deadline. Now, this is something that I know everyone is just going to say it's a part of the game, but I think this is a part of the game that is just, there is a solution, and we could either do it or, just continue as is. And I think most people don't like change, so I think it makes sense that people wouldn't warm to this idea. But the fact that we can stagger the deadlines just would completely erase the fact that, or erase the issue of a player just randomly getting benched or injured, but they didn't discuss it on in the press conferences or whatever. So this would allow us to engage with the game and engage with the Premier League a bit more. I probably should have said this up top. The main purpose of FPL is to get more eyeballs on the screens. If people are staying more engaged to these deadlines and press conferences and things like that, they're going to be more engaged with the sport, and thus, funnel more dollars to the advertisers. So if we had a staggered deadline, how this would work is that instead of just having one deadline at the beginning of the game week, which what is it, like 90 minutes before kickoff, which again, I know people are not going to like this suggestion. I think I suggested it last season and people didn't like it, but what is the argument for deadline 90 minutes before the first kickoff? Like, is there a solid point? I don't mean to straw man anybody out here, but it just seems a bit arbitrary. Like, why not just put it at the kickoff? Like, even if they just put it at the kickoff, we would be able to get some information from them releasing the lineups ahead of the game, so that you could act on, oh, this player got dropped for no reason, I can put them on the bench. That seems pretty reasonable to me. And then I would take it a step further and then do the staggered deadline, so that a player is only locked in your team if the kickoff has taken place. So again, this would provide more engagement to the game, and thus the Premier League overall, which I think is their goal. They're trying to get more money. I could see how this would be not as good of a change for casuals, because they just want to log in 1 week and set their team up and fuck off, basically. This doesn't mean that they can't do that. They still can do that, but there's an advantage, or there's some sort of competitive edge to actually providing some focus to the Premier League, which is what they want. So yeah, if you're focusing on the deadlines and watching the game and making sure you're like tuning in, you're going to have more of an advantage. I feel like that kind of makes sense. And I think overall it would be good for the game. So if you're a casual and you just want to check your team once a week or once a month, whatever, make a couple transfers here and there, you can still do that. I just think this would allow for a slight advantage. Again, it's like you only have 1 or 2 transfers a week for the most part. Is it that impactful? Probably not. But I think in terms of like how the game is set up and how it could play, I think that's much better for the game and for the user experience. And one final thing, I don't think anyone's going to agree with this one either, but, and this I think is a big boon. This suggestion is a big boon for more casual players, which is, I personally wish there was just one deadline a week for price changes. I probably should have mentioned this in the price changing section, but I don't want to be checking the prices change, like the probability of players rising and falling every single day. Like, yeah, I wish it was just once a week. I understand why it's every single day. I don't know why people like that. I would personally just, my dog is growling at me. I would just have it once a week, make it a random day, a Tuesday, a Wednesday, whatever. All the prices change. You can at most rise or fall 0.1 million each week. It would make it a little bit more stable. And maybe you can even change that a little bit. Maybe you can rise or fall 0.2 or 0.3 in a given week, but it's just once a week and not every single day. I don't want to talk about that too much, but that was my last kind of point on randomness and all that good stuff. Look at this dog. This dog is trying to bully me for food. And I'm going to have to give in. So Maggie's getting a lot of screen time. I'll feed you now. Okay. Okay, I am back, and I just want to briefly talk about pricing. So if you hadn't seen the video, podcast, whatever, that was released yesterday, definitely check that out. I think yeah, it's worth exploring if you're interested in any of this kind of stuff. But I think there's a big gap in what the pricing currently is for the most part over the past like few seasons and what it probably should be. So I provided some methodology in that video. It's very overly simplified, and I think it would require some tweaking. But in addition to that, I think you could use some sort of methodology like that, but at a base minimum, I think you could probably increase the price of players by like 1 million or 0.5 million of like whatever they're going to set the pricing up to be, just increase the price of every single player by 1 million. I think that would be a massive improvement to the pricing, because if you didn't see the video, really the biggest problem is that if you added up every single highest scoring player and put them into a team, a 15-man team, your top 3 scoring forwards, top 5 scoring midfielders, top 5 scoring defenders, you get the idea. The team value at the beginning of the season, that team costs 100 million. Like, that is an affordable team. Essentially, you could afford every top scoring player across the entire 38 game weeks. Of course, there's fluctuations. Certain players have better form at the beginning and at the end, but generally speaking, the pricing is just too low. And I think some of the excuses for that is that, oh, who would have anticipated so-and-so's form to just like blow up and have a break? There's a breakout player every single season. So to mitigate that issue, just raise the pricing overall so that there is more of a decision, because as it currently stood last season, the pricing I think was pretty broken. And the pricing has been pretty broken in the past too. I always think about the Cole Palmer season where he's 5 million and he was scoring like 200 points. The same thing happened last season with Gabriel, over 200 points. He was like, what, 6.5 million at the beginning of the season. I don't think they took defensive contributions into account. So my methodology, if you don't want to watch the video from yesterday, my methodology showed that forwards were probably a little overpriced. So maybe just like keep them to where you think they should be. Midfielders were probably fine. Increase them 0.5 million, and then defenders were way underpriced. So increase them by like at least 1 million on top of what FPL Towers thinks it should be, and you're going to have a better game, almost guaranteed. Because yeah, if I haven't explained this enough, the main reason why FPL is such a good game is you have to make some decisions. You may get a little something here, but you might have to give a little something in other areas. So you're allocating your budget in different ways. But if you could afford everyone, that just goes out the window. Value is meaningless. Price is meaningless. The game essentially is meaningless if you do that. Now, another way you can fix that or adjust it is just drop the amount of team money or value you have at the beginning of the game. So instead of 100 million, 90 million, 95, 85, 75, like you can adjust this however way you want. But if you just drop the team value, you wouldn't have to adjust the rest of the game as much. Just give us a little less to start with, and then you'd have to make a team with 75 million, and guaranteed you could make a good team with 75 million. Almost 100% I would bet the house on that you could make a pretty good team that would, finish potentially in the top 10K or whatever with 75 million. You were able to get the best team in the entire possibility of FPL with 100 million last season. You should be able to give up a little bit and still be competitive. And the last little segment I want to talk about is just quality of life improvements. So I'm just going to go over to this screen. This is kind of a summary of what we have or what's been announced so far, I believe. I mean, on top of this, they've provided some player position changes and things like that. So there might be a few changes that aren't discussed here, but the ones that I want to highlight, I think it's a positive thing that we're getting some like live ranking, which you would have been able to see in live FPL, where you can go to your ranking or whatever and put in your team and you get some sort of live rank. Live FPL had the feature. They're bringing it into the official FPL game, and I think that's great. There's a potential drawback though that I hope they considered before making this change, and that's if you're a frequent user of live FPL, it does crash and it does stutter a lot, especially around the end of games when people are checking their rank. So but for the first time, I am not a web developer. I'm a statistician. I don't know what it takes to like run a website or an app or anything like that. But my very low level of knowledge would tell my intuition that you probably need some sort of server space expansion, things like that, so that you're not getting crashes. And because FPL, it's not it. Even as it stands, when they do batch updates, it's not immune to crashing and things like that. So would I rather have a non-crashing fluid game and just have batch updates to my live rank? 100%. But obviously live ranks, I think, is a great improvement, but only if they're able to keep the quality, which I feel like I have to have air quotes around because FPL is not known for its quality, but to maintain the status quo of like the occasional crash, if they're able to do that while implementing the live updates, I think that's great. Now, another change that I am in favor of is that you can see if you go to your history and you go to previous seasons on the website. Again, this is not on the app, which I think a huge recommendation would be, why can't the app have your history? And maybe it does, and I just don't know how to use it properly. But I really like how they've added this percent finish, so you could see like your overall rank based on the percentile, not like the raw number, because obviously more people have been playing over the past recent years and fewer people have been playing at the beginning. So my overall career finish is the top 2%, and that's kind of cool. I don't know if that's good. It probably, like, for the level that I would hope to, probably not, especially this one season where I was top 8%, kind of like right outside right inside the top 1 million. But I just think this is a positive change, so they could do more things like this. And I've made some suggestions in the past. I don't know if this is going to resonate with everyone, but the idea of like a badge system so that you get like ranks and whatnot for longevity. You could make it more specialized than just like a raw percentile finish and overall percentile. Like, I think this definitely has some bragging rights, this career percentile finish. I think that's awesome. But you can make it more customized and do like, oh, you've been playing for 5 seasons, you get the silver longevity award, and you hit the top 1% 3 times, you get the gold tier for, whatever, something like that, to make it a little bit more personalized. I think that'd be cool. And you could just have it on like one page, very simple. So again, I like this improvement from FPL. I think it could go like one step further and it would be a little bit cooler. Not a crazy thing, but again, we're in the quality of life section. These are very minor changes, which I think is such low hanging fruit. They should be able to do it. And this is hopefully a good reference for the next thing I want to talk about. And I saw this and I definitely resonated with it. So I apologize, I don't remember where I saw it. It was on the subreddit. But searching and sorting like basically anywhere on the website or the app is a joke. Like, this is the mini league for the FPL subreddit, and you cannot sort, as far as I'm aware. Like, like you can't sort by game week rank. You can't even sort by total. It is sorted by total, but can't sort there. You can't really filter apart from the month. So, and again, I don't know if this is cumulative or like just October. Let me go to another month. Yeah, it seems like it's just the month, because those are kind of generally month scores, I'm guessing. Yeah. Okay. So you can sort it by, or you can filter by month. That's about it. So there's this website, FPL Gameweek, much better. Like you can see the game week. Like this is the mini league that I host, that there is a reward for if you want to be involved in that and potentially get, I think I have like a cash prize or a kit. I honestly can't even remember at this point. Yeah, there is a cash prize. So if you want some sort of cash prize, stay tuned and follow the mini league. You're welcome to join. But for the mini league, like you can sort by the month total, the game week net total, so that you can figure out who exactly won the game week, and it takes into account transfers. So if you take hits, it's included into this game week net. So I feel like that's another feature. FPL has now become, they've gotten used to stealing features from live FPL. Steal from this amazing website. I think having this integrated into the app and into the website would be so easy. And then you could I think it would be really great to let's go back to this. Like if you hovered over a team and you could see like how their team stacks up against your team, just like little things like that would be huge quality of life improvements. Now, again, they have to balance improvements with server quality and stability of the website. So I totally get that. But these are optimistic quality of life improvements. They're not going to do it, and definitely not in this season, probably not next season, but just getting the idea out there. You can transform something that's like, this is atrocious. Like to have a screen in 2026 that it just has game week total, you can't sort it, the names are a joke. That will bring me on to my next point. Just to wrap up, just to have like a screen like this, it's so bad. It could be so much better. Yeah, the website's just not great. And I am not a web developer, web guy, app guy, but I can even recognize that this is so much far below like a standard of what you would expect in something that has the amount of money and resources as the Premier League. Okay, and while we're here, privacy. So why do you have to show this person's name, like any of these people's names? Like, can we have it so that we can remove that? I don't know why. I don't need to see any of these people's real names. Like that's not meaningful to me at all. Do I know who Connell McGarry is? No. Do I care? No. So yeah. Privacy standpoint, remove names from anything public, or at least have the option to remove it from the public facing website and just use your team name. That's fine. Nobody cares. At the end of the day, it comes down to the team you have. And while we're talking about that, the other thing is the amount of bots. Like, I don't know if we'll be able to spot any off the top of my head here, but it is crazy the amount of bots this game has. If they do not have some sort of protection over it, maybe I'm the crazy one, but if you go to the game week leader board, like on the first day, like if there's one match on a Friday, for instance, guaranteed there's going to be a top game week scorer who is a bot who will have triple captain played, or they'll have bench boost played, and all of the players on their team is from those two teams. Every single week it's like that. So it doesn't feel natural. Like are those normal people going after that, or are they bots? I am under the assumption that those are like bots trying to get some sort of, I think you get like individual day prizes and things like that, maybe from other websites, maybe from FPL itself. But yeah, you see it every single week. You should only be allowed to have one account. I know there's going to be ways around that, but there has to be some level of greater protection against bots, multiple accounts, things like that. That I feel like that is relatively simple, and hopefully that's something we can all agree on. That would be an improvement. Okay, so this is where I'm just going to wrap it up. Hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully you can resonate with some of these suggestions. I'd love to hear your suggestions. I think, I only have my stupid smooth brain, and I wrote down some of my thoughts at the end of the season. A lot of these are recurring from previous seasons as well. So these have just been on my mind, and I love FPL. If you cannot tell, I absolutely am obsessed. I am a data stat dork, and FPL is like the perfect marriage of my love of football and my love of statistics. So if they can improve this game, I would be forever grateful. I think some of my suggestions definitely need work. Definitely let me know if you feel like there are improvements to what I said, or just like scrapping my ideas altogether. Love to get your viewpoint. So hit me up in the comments, hit me up on Reddit, whatever. I'd love to engage. And I think for the most part, the improvements that they've announced as of now are like mild quality of life improvements at the best. And I think they could take more aggressive steps in the future to make it a lot better. It's all going to come down to price though. So if the pricing is terrible, it's not going to be a good game. If the pricing is good, it could be a great game. It could be the best FPL, but we'll have to wait and to see when the pricing comes out, and stay tuned for that, because once we get pricing, I can start calculating the value added per million. We can start getting value estimates for every single player. I just need to merge them into my existing data set and calculate their VAPM. So with the new pricing. So with that, subscribe, all the good stuff that the algorithm wants you to do. That would be helpful. And I'll see you next time, which could be soon. Lots of FPL coming out every single day. So see you then. Bye.